First of all, today's Tuesday, and it's Yud Zayin Tammuz, Shiva Sabbat Tammuz. We're going back to our regular schedule, finally. So first of all, I have to say something about Shiva Sabbat Tammuz. You can't just go over it, make believe it's not happening. First of all, the Rebbe, in Tafshan Lamed Ches, 1978, on Asar B'Tevis, which was the first fast of the Rebbe's after the event of Shmini Atzeres Tafshan Lamed Ches, spoke a Sikha. And he said in that Sikha, amongst other things, that it says in Shulchan Aruch that there's a minig Yisrael Teirehi that on a fast day in the afternoon somebody should speak in shul divrei kvushim. Divrei kvushim means words of musar, words of encouragement, words of hisayrus. In other words, as the Rebbe Rashab told the Friedrich Rebbe once, Fasten heißt nicht darin sich. Fasting doesn't mean dieting. A fast has to have a teuchen, pnimi, has to have an inner intention. And oftentimes people don't know the significance and the meaning of a fast in general and specific. In other words, why we fast altogether and why we're fasting this particular fast. So there's a din in Shulchan Aruch that either an elder or a wise or an elder wise, which is God the best, that's Pirkei Noah, Zekone Megudol, Urev Mabriis, and all those other wonderful things, she gets up and speaks to the Elam after Mincha. So the Rebbe said he doesn't know why this minig was this battle, why people don't do it, but it's never too late to start it over. So the Rebbe made a minig to speak Divrei Kvushim, and he did it on every one of the fasts except Tisha B'Av. He did it in terms of the year. It's saying Gedalia and Asar B'Tevis and Tainis Esther and Shiva Sabbat Tammuz. Tisha B'Av the Rebbe didn't speak. That's all I have. You could share. In Tafshin Nun Aleph, 1991, the year before the stroke, before Ma'ariv, the Rebbe came back into the shul. Before Ma'ariv, the Rebbe came back into the shul and spoke a Sikha on Tisha B'Av. And if I remember correctly, it's a very long time ago that after the Rebbe finished speaking that Sikha, while it was still Tisha B'Av, the Rebbe started singing a nigun. I mean, Bechlal and Lubavitch linked Menasach, right? For those of you who know the history of Lubavitch, when the Rebbe became Rebbe, they sang very little. And when they sang the Nagunim, we're not exactly Freilich and Nagunim, and the Rebbe changed that to the extreme, slowly but surely, that we should sing Freilich and Nagunim, and we should sing all the time. And in the later years, it became a normal thing that when the Rebbe went in and out of shul, they sang. In the earlier years, it was quiet. And I remember that quiet. You can see it on the movies, on the videos. When the Rebbe came into shul, before a davening, or the beginning of a fabrengen, the quiet was such a powerful feeling. The Rebbe walked into a fabrengen. The stilkeit, the only noise you heard was a bench banking. It was so quiet. There was something very honoring, very hadras hakovedik about that. Later on, they started to sing when the Rebbe walked in. And the Rebbe apparently encouraged it. But that respect, when the Rebbe walked into the shul at 10 o'clock in the morning on Shabbos, and the same is true also when the Rebbe came into Fabrengen, was extraordinary. But they started to sing a lot. In the 9 days, they didn't sing. Finished. The 9 days, Avela Zink finished. Here, on Tisha B'Av itself, the Rebbe starts to sing the nigun of his father that he sang by Hakofis, you understand? This was a very unusual thing, and it's another madrege in the idea of Mishenichnas of Mematim B'Simcha, that you take away the Avelas through in Yonam of Simcha with your mutter. Anyway, so the Rebbe began to speak in Tafshin Lamed Ches, 1978, about Divrei Kvushim. And every fast day of those 4 fasts, Asar B'Tevis, and Shiva Sabbat Tammuz, and same Gedalia, and then in addition to those 3, which are sequential, you also have Tainus says the Rebbe spoke a Sikha, and the Rebbe did this for till Nun Beis, about 15 years, 14 years. And the way the Rebbe said these Sikhas was he built on the past. In other words, the very first Sikhas, the very first years, he spoke the basic in Yonim. And he expected us to learn those Sikhas and know the basics, so that later years he spoke different in Yonim of Divrei Kvushim. So when the Rebbe spoke about fasts and the idea that a fast, that you have to speak Divrei Musar and Divrei Seirus on a fast, the Rebbe always quoted the Rambam. It's a very important Rambam, where the Rambam writes as follows, 2 parts. The first part is that a person who sees a tzara shetovei ala tzibur, when a community experiences a tzara, a shverigkeit, an ibelebenish, a challenge, a hardship, and he says mikra nikris, that it's coincidental, it happened, chance. So the Rambam says to construe challenges that people experience as a coincidence, as not something of any value or meaning, is a from cruelty. Why? Because everything is by Ashgacha Pratis, everything is by divine hand. And like the Baal Shem Tov said, that from everything that a Jew sees or hears, he has to learn a lesson in Avodas Hashem. So if you heard about something, especially if you're close to something, if you're involved in something, right? Like V'achai yitin elibe, the Chazal say that one of the people of the Chabura is missing. The whole, when somebody experiences a tragedy happening to somebody close to him, it's a message to him that you all have to do tshuva. So the Rebbe said, when a tragedy occurs, the Rambam says, and the person says, mikra nikris, listen, it's derech olam, things happen. That's derech achzariyas. A person has to be initiated from a negative event and learn something positive from it. Like the Pasuk Taka says, the Rebbe spoke about this, of course, in Tafshin Memches, the living must take to heart. In other words, when something happens, it's not good, and you know about it, it's a message from the Eibishter. It's not a morbid message. Eibishter isn't sending messages of destruction, chas v'sholem, but he's sending messages that are supposed to wake us up to be more chai, to be more lebedik, to be involved in bigger and better and in higher things. That's the first nakudah. And then the second nakudah is that the Rebbe said the Chazal instituted fast, the Tanakh, the Nevi'im, Divrei Kabbalah, instituted fast right there in Tanakh. You have Tseim Ha'asiri, and you have Tseim Haravi, and Tseim Hachamishi, you have Tseim Haravi, and Tseim, you have Tseim Ha'asiri, and Tseim Haravi, and Tseim Hachamishi, and Tseim Hashvi. That's the order in which the events occurred. The first fast, Asar B'Tevis, when they made a siege on Yerushalayim. The second fast was Shivas Tammuz, which is 2.5 years later, when Hufka Oha'ir, which is today, they broke through the walls of Yerushalayim. And then Tisha B'Av, when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. And same Gedalia, which happened after Chorban Abayis. But there was still a Yishuv, there was still a community of Jewish people living in Eretz Yisrael after Chorban Bayis Rishon, which meant that the Ruach HaKodesh, the Nevuah, the Madrega V'Lakus, which had pervaded Eretz Yisrael, continued. And then because of the death of Gedalia ben Achikam, all the Jewish people left. They tried to go to Mitzrayim, they ended up in Bavel. And as a result of this, Eretz Yisrael was vacated of Yidden completely. And when Yidden came back to Eretz Yisrael, it was no longer the same Eretz Yisrael that they knew in Zman Bayis Rishon. So we have these fasts. So the Rambam writes that a Yom Tainis is a Yom Rotzen. A fast day is not a sad day or a negative day, or to say it more precisely, we're not fasting because of the negativity. We're fasting because it's an opportunity, it's an eis ratzon for tshuva. And the concept of a fast is a seder for tshuva. In other words, some people think that you're fasting to suffer. Our ancestors suffered, so we should suffer also. But that's not the pshat. The pshat is that when you have an occasion which reminds you of an event which is not good in the relationship between the Eibishter and Yidden, and of course everything that happens in the world involves the relationship between the Eibishter and the world, and of course specifically the relationship between the Eibishter and the Yidden. So when something negative occurs, it's not only a punishment, it's a correction. And you have to take advantage of this opportunity to make the correction and to reverse the Inyan Loi Toiv, which has to do with this event. So therefore the Rambam writes, this is what the Rebbe talked about, that when you have a fast day, you have to use it for tshuva, for Yesodus and for tshuva, because the event itself was given to us to inspire us to do tshuva, and the doing the tshuva reverses the event. Like the Rebbe used to bring all the time, that the Siddur says, we were exiled because of our chatoim, because of our averis, and therefore, if we'll reverse those chatoim, we'll reverse the galina me'artzeinu. And what was the chet for which we were exiled? So of course, this is a little bit complicated. There's by Rishon and there's by Sheni.
They didn't observe the Shemitah.
This Rishon, by Rishon and by Sheni is different things. The bottom line is, the Gemara says that it's because of Avas Yisrael, Sinas Chinam. Right? That there was a lack of Avas Chinam, of unconditional love, and instead there was Sinas Chinam. And Al-Kamto, Bar-Kamto, Charvi Yerushalayim. The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of the lack of Avos Yisrael. And therefore the Rebbe says the Hisaydus that you have to have on a fast day has to do with the inyan of you have to l'reich al-kamoich. So this is an inyan that applies to all fasts. All fasts. And today specifically is Shiva Asa Tammuz. They came into Yerushalayim, they broke down the walls and so on and so forth. But the Gemara says that there were many different things that happened on Shiva Asa Tammuz. The first of them was that the Yidden made the Egel. Right? The Mishnah, the Gemara says 5 things happened on Shiva Asa Tammuz and 5 things happened on Tisha B'Av. And one of them was that they made the Egel. The last of it was that the city of Yerushalayim, the walls of Yerushalayim were breached, and there was a breakdown of the separation between what is inside and what is outside. Right? That's how you explain it to Ruchni's Dikaterbis. What does it mean the walls are broken? Obviously, the walls are broken mean that the enemy outside comes inside, and there was a terrible war, a hand-to-hand battle. Yerushalayim was a big city. Yerushalayim had a lot of people. And Yerushalayim, there were a lot of people who were willing to fight and die. They had the Bar-Yuni. There's a whole story in the Gemara. And it took them 2.5 weeks, took them 3 weeks to get to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, from the walls of Yerushalayim. It gives you an idea how tough it was. And it was a terrible, terrible time. But b'pnimiyus anyonim, spiritually, what does it mean? Hufka aha'ir, that there's a wall. And the wall separates what's inside from what's outside. And that wall needs to be there. Because that wall determines what's Kedesh and what's Chayil. What's Kedesh and what's Tahir and what's Tahir and what's Chayil. And what's Chayil and what's not lower than Chayil, which is Ra. And when the walls break down, it's not good. You know, you have the story of Kerach. Right? The story of Kerach just a couple of weeks ago. That Kerach wanted to break a wall down. And Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, Beker v'yeda havaya. You can't break the walls the Eibishter made in this world. Just like you can't break the wall between day and night and Shabbos and the weekday, you can't break the wall between a Yid and a Goy, you can't break the wall between a Kohen and a Levi. And Kerach was trying to break a wall. And the concept of Hufka Ha'id is the breaking of a wall, which is not a good thing, which brings about a Churban. But the Rebbe, of course, always had a very positive way of spinning things. The Rebbe always, whenever he talked about the fast, they always used to spin them in a positive way. Why? Because when you look at fasts, you can look at them in 2 ways. In other words, I just spent, I don't know how many minutes I'm talking. I'm talking for a while. 12 minutes and 37 seconds to be exact. Yeah. And what I'm saying and what I'm talking about is the tiny ace and Shiva Asa Tammuz, and it has to do with a tragedy. And if you say that it's Derech Mikra Nikit Derech Achzorius, and it's from Eis Ratzon, then you have to do tshuva. All the things I just said. But it's focusing on the past. There's another perspective on the fast. And the other perspective on the fast is what the Tez also Takya in the Rambam, and the Rebbe brings it a lot, that when Moshiach comes, Yahavchu Yom Meilu Sosna L'Simcha Ve'emes V'Ashalom Ha'hevu. That's how the Rambam finishes Hilchas Tainis. That when Mashiach comes, the fast days are not going to be bottled. The fast days are not going to be broken. The fast days are going to become Yimei Sosna V'Simcha. They're going to become happy days. So of course, the question is, we fast because of a tragedy. So when Mashiach comes, and the effects of that tragedy are no longer, we have a Beis HaMikdash and we're living in Eretz Yisrael. So the fast day should stop. This we understand. But why should the fast day become a Yom Tov? What kind of sense does it make that the fast day should become a Yom Tov? The fast day has to do with a tragedy. No, so what's the point of making it a Yom Tov? Stop it. So of course the answer to this question, again, everything I'm sharing with you is based on Sichas of the Rebbe, is based on a Medrash that the Rebbe brings also. That the Medrash says, Medrash says that the Beis HaMikdash was gilded. It's described in Tanakh also, in Yechezkel. The Beis HaMikdash, the walls of the Beis HaMikdash, when Yidden could afford it, was covered with gold. When they couldn't afford it, they took the gold off, or they didn't put the gold on. But if Yidden could afford it, the entire interior, the Beis HaMikdash, was plated with gold. And the gold plates had designs on them, had pictures on them. One of the designs they had on the gold plates was timorim, was trees of palm trees, dates, palm trees, with dates, without dates, but palm trees. And between every palm tree, or every 2 palm trees, I forget, there was a set of kruvim, cherubs. And we know what kruvim are. Kruvim are the face of a boy, the face of a girl with wings. In the second Beis HaMikdash, there was no Aron, but the kruvim on the walls they had. And there was a big nest with these kruvim. What was the nest? that when the Eibishter and Yidden were in a good Maimed Matzav with each other, the Kruvim faced one another. When the Eibishter and the Yidden were in a bad Maimed Matzav, the Kruvim miraculously turned their backs on one another. And for the last few decades, for many, many years before the Churban, the Kruvim were permanently back to back. So the Medrash says that when Titus came into the Beis HaMikdash, Titus was an Apokedus. Titus was a bigger Rasha than Nebuchadnezzar, and Nebuchadnezzar was called a Kelev. It's very difficult to be a bigger Rasha than Nebuchadnezzar, but Titus managed, because Titus was an Apokedus. He was Mamash a Kaifer. He didn't believe. Nebuchadnezzar believed and didn't care. Titus was a total atheist. And for the Gemara that he stabbed the Aron Kodesh and the Parechas and it started bleeding and so on. There's a very strange Gemara how a mosquito went into his head and he suffered from headaches for years and years and years and years until he died. But anyway, Titus came out with one of these plates with the Kruvim on them, and the two Kruvim were Ma'urim Zebazeh. They were not only facing each other, they were in an embrace. They were hugging each other. So Titus said to the Yidden, look, your God is making fun of you. Your God is mocking you. The Rebbe lacht von euch. He's laughing at you. This is a story. So how is it explained? The explanation is that Shafach Apa Leitzav Alavorim. There's a different aspects to it. The Rebbe should destroy his house rather than destroy his people. Or to say it in different words, the moment of maximum love is the moment of maximum correction. When does the Eibush to show us maximum love? Right? Chedesh Av is called Av. And Av Bepashtus means a father. The Chedesh of the Churban is a Chedesh Av, Menachem Av. It's a very interesting thing. Why? Because the Eibush doesn't want Yidden to be lost. The Gemara speaks about this. The Eibush is never going to let the Jewish people be destroyed. And the correction preserves us. So the moment of the Churban, you see this incredible Ahava. The Ahava on the walls of the Beis HaMikdash, you saw it Begollah, because the Eibush is taking such extreme measures, including destroying his own home, to preserve and to save the Jewish people. So, to say that you're going to make a Yom Tif out of Tisha B'Av because Eibush is loving us, not exactly. Why? Because that's not how we experienced it. We experienced it as a Churban. We experienced it Pashat Kipshute as a Retzach, as a Holocaust, as a murder. And most significantly of all, that the Jewish people were spread out all over the world. They lost their homeland, they lost their center, they lost their community, and because of this, Sadis Srudis came to Klal Yisrael for 2,000 years. But it's still true that the moment of the Churban was the moment of Ahava. So when the Golus ends and the Geula begins and things are again in order, you look at this date and say, if not for this date, we wouldn't exist. If not for Tisha B'Av, the Pasha wouldn't be Yidden. So when Tisha B'Av is a Yom Aval, you're not going to run around saying what a Yom Tif Tisha B'Av is, that the Eibishter loved us so much that he made us suffer such terrible suffering. But once the suffering finishes, and you're back in a good Maimed Matzav, so then you can say that this is a day that showed the Eibishter's incredible Ahava. He would not allow the Jewish nation to be destroyed at any cost, and this was a very significant expression of that Ahava. I'll still put it to you in different words. I'm learning Sefer Yeshaya. That's one of the things I'm doing. Long story, but I get every day on the internet 2 or 3 psukim from Sefer Yeshaya. It's very difficult to learn 2 psukim a day in Sefer Yeshaya because every day I have to remember what you learned yesterday. I don't understand the Havort. It's such hard. The language, it's all poetic. But there's a Pirush that comes along with it that tries to explain it. And it's a pretty morbid Sefer Yeshaya. It's very, very long. And the Prakam that I'm learning now is describing the Brisim, the covenants that the Yidden make with Goyim, with Mitzrayim, with Ashur, with this one. And the Navi Yeshaya is predicting that none of those brisim are going to last. They're all going to be destroyed. Because these superpowers, Mitzrayim, Ashur, which lived in very close proximity to another terms of chronology, would disappear. You make a peace treaty with a nation, it's only as powerful as that nation is. If that nation ceases to exist, when the nation stops existing, the peace treaty has absolutely no significance, there's no value. So the Navi is describing Yidden making all these deals. Yehuda is making deals with Mitzrayim. Yehuda is making deals with Ashur, right? And they're not going to last, not because the terms of the deals are going to be violated, because Ashur is going to cease to exist. You can't make a deal with a kingdom that no longer exists. Mitzrayim no longer, and then the Nebuchadnezzar goes on to say, but there'll be a Chizkiyahu HaMelech, and he'll survive, he'll be around. And the spirit of the Sefer, I mean, it's very complicated. And at least some of the Perakim, the spirit of the Perakim is Yidden making all these kinds of ways of preserving themselves, and the ground always falls out from under them. Because the only thing that's really real is the Yid himself. All the other nations, Yidden are trying to protect themselves, they're trying to keep themselves, they're trying to secure themselves by making alliances. But the alliances that they're making are making with nations that seem very powerful, and very rich, and very secure. And the Navi is predicting they're going to disappear, and you'll still be here minus your bris. You understand? This happens over and over and over again. We are having this conversation in Tov Shin Ayin Zayin 2017. We're having this conversation about Yidden. That's the story. You know, I remember as a kid, I've told this to you many times. As a child, this happened when I was a boy, before my bar mitzvah. I saw in a magazine a picture of Shar Titus. Shar Titus is the arch in Rome. The Romans, when they would go out to war and they would come back victorious, they would take plunder. They would take wealth away from the nations that they conquered. And they would take this plunder and use it to build monuments for themselves. And they built these monuments that they should live into posterity. And 2,000 years later, we still have those monuments. And one of those monuments is the archway of Titus, which was the Roman legions march under that arch when they came back from destroying Yerushalayim. And on top of the arch, there's a picture of them carrying the Meneda and the Keleb of the Beis HaMikdash. Kiyudu before, so that's the famous picture of the Meneda with the curved arms. It only has 5 arms, by the way. That's 7. But that's where the whole mistake of how the Meneda looked started, and so on. So some Kachnik, this is the JDL years, this is the 70s, climbed. This is huge. I've never been to Rome, but it's as big as, over here we had Grand Line Plaza. It's that big. It's huge. Some guy climbed up to the top of this arch and sprayed on Am Yisrael Chai. I remember seeing it as a kid. It's gone. They got rid of the graffiti. I think the Romans should leave it there because that'll keep that arch standing longer. But if you think about it, if you would take to a Roman legionnaire in the year 70 of the Common Era, or 76 or 70, whenever they came back from Israel, Hezekiah, 2,000 years, one of the vanquished is going to climb up on this arch and spray on the words Am Yisrael Chai, and there's not going to be a single Roman legionnaire to stop him. Maybe he'll get a fine. He'll say it can't be. They're destroyed, they're defeated, they're crushed, and look at us. But that's the Metzias Advarim. So this is the pshat, and this medrash that when the Eibishter is giving Yidden the greatest gevura, it's a symptom of the greatest Avon. Now, chas v'sholom, it shouldn't be viewed as hatstokas hadin. Nobody is saying, God forbid, that we're happy about the Yisurim and the Tzaras. The Eibishter has other ways of doing things. But after the fact, the Midrash Chazal tell us that these tragedies preserve us. And this is why when Moshiach comes, the Yemei Tainis don't only stop, they become Yemei Sasa v'Simcha. The biggest Yomim Tevim Yidden are going to have when Moshiach comes are the current fasts. And I've discussed this with you many times over the years. There's 3 Madregas in Yomim Tevim. The first Madrega in Yomim Tevim is that the Mishnah says, the Gemara says, that, and the Rambam brings a similar thing, that Kol HaMoyed and B'Teilim. When Mashiach comes, all the Yomim Tevim are bottled. Finished. No Pesach, no Shuas, no Sukkos. Now, of course, Chassidus gets very nervous when you say Kol HaMoed and B'Teilim. Why? Because it says in Rambam, HaTeira Hazu Leitiyah Muchlefes, the Teira never changes, the Tayag Mitzvahs never change. Halachas HaTeira Shebal Peh Eina B'Teilim L'Yelam. So how could you have this idea of Moed and B'Teilim? So it's explained al pi Chassidus. What's the pshat Kol HaMoed and B'Teilim al pi Chassidus? That the Yom Tov you have. But if on a regular day, on a Poshet Mitzvah, you have the same Giluyot, the same revelation of godliness that you have on Pesach, or Shuas, and Sukkos, so the Ruchni is the Pesach is bottle. Of course you're going to eat matzah and Pesach. And of course you're going to eat cheesecake and Sukkos and blintzes, and you're not going to have any problems with the stomach problems, yeah? And of course Sukkos, we're going to sit in the Sukkah, we're going to shake the Alad Minim, we're going to take our Rova, we're going to make our kofas. But the Giluyim of Moshiach on a regular day are equal to, or greater than, the Giluyim of these Yomim Tevim. So you're going to do the Yomim Tovim, but the oil of the Yom Tov is going to be bottled k'shraga b'tihara. Just like when you have a candle during the day. You have a candle burning during the day, yeah? Is it adding any additional light? Not really, no. But you're not going to say there's no candle. When the sun sets, it's there. Similarly, when Mashiach comes, bottle doesn't mean you're not going to have Pesach. Bottle means you're not going to see Pesach. You're not going to see Shavuos. You're not going to see Sukkot. That's the first Madrega. What's the second Madrega? Chutz. Which Yom Tovim will be outstanding even after Mashiach comes? Chanukah and Purim. Chanukah and Purim are going to be outstanding even after Mashiach comes. The light of Chanukah and Purim is going to be distinct. Why? Because Chanukah and Purim are Yom Tovim Mesiras Nefesh. Chanukah and Purim don't come from the Torah. Chanukah and Purim come from Yidden. And this is a deeper idea. So even though a Mashiach comes is going to be an incredible light, the light of Chanukah Purim is even greater. And then we're going to have new Yom Tovim. What are going to be the new Yom Tovim? Asara B'Tevis, Shavasa B'Tammuz, Tisha B'Yov, and same Gedalia. I don't know what the Tainus Esther, the thing I can't figure out. Tainus Esther is a funny fast. It's very hard for me to understand Tainus Esther. Tainus Esther to me is like Yom Kippur. You're fasting because you're above food. I don't understand Tainus Esther. I once gave a class on it here, and actually put it up online. But Tainus Esther is very hard. What are we fasting about? But okay, I don't want to start trouble with Tainus Esther. Esther is and we're descendants of Esther. Yeah, after enough generations, everybody's related to everybody. Yeah, but I don't understand Tainus Esther in terms of this. In other words, I don't know if you could call Tainus Esther a bad thing in the first place. In other words, Tainus Esther was never a bad fast. It's a fast like Yom Kippur is a fast. It's not a bad fast. It's a fast. But the other four are negative. When Mashiach comes, they become even greater Yom Tov than Chanukah and Purim because they reflect the ultimate ahav of the Eibishter to the Yidden. And that's the story of the Jewish nation. The story of the Jewish nation is one thing. Survival. Survival. And we survive because the Eibishter preserves us. I saw once in a Maimer. And a very interesting thing, a very powerful thing, a very compelling thing. The Rebbe Rashab said that the miracle of Kifsa Achas Ben Shivim Ze'evim V'hi Mishtameret, the miracle of Jewish survival is greater than the miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf and the 10 Makis and Matan Torah. Now imagine Kriyas Yamsuf. The sea splits. 3 million people walk B'tei Hayom B'Yabasha B'tei Hayom on dry land, and all the other details brought Midrash Chazal, and then the Mitzrayim drowned in that same Yam. It's a Pelesh Ein Komeyu. Jewish survival is a bigger ness, and we survive only because the Eibishter preserves us. And these days have to do, in other words, these setbacks, these nisyones have to do with the survival of the Jewish people. And this is why when Mashiach comes, they become a Yom Tov, because it's not only the pshat that the negative was taken away. The truth of the Yom Tov, which is that the ahava that the Eibishter has to Yidden is so unlimited that he does whatever he needs to do to preserve us, even to do things which he doesn't want to do because they hurt. And therefore the Rebbe has another spin, a ganz and a naya cook, that instead of looking at a fast day backwards, that this fast has to do with an Aveda. And if you correct the Aveda and do tshuva for it, which is in Avos Yisrael, Avos Chinam, Mashiach will come. That has to be done also. There's another perspective. That whenever a fast day comes, you anticipate how this fast day is going to be a Yom Tov. In other words, instead of looking backwards, look forward. That the inyan of a fast day is an expression of the ultimate Av of the Eibishter to Yidden, which is going to be revealed when Mashiach comes. Now, getting back to Shavasa B'Tammuz again, right? What happened to Shavasa B'Tammuz? The walls were broken. Like I explained to you before, the breaking of the walls means taking down a machitza that must exist. In the Eibishter's world, there must be machitzas. You know, the hippies believe in no walls. Yeah, so I'll give a hippie a kasha. A human body is made up of cells, trillions of them. Every cell has what's called an envelope. That means a wall. It has 2 layers, it has 3 layers, depending on what kind of a cell it is. It's more than one mechitza. And those mechitzas serve various purposes. They let out what has to go out. They take in what needs to come in. And they separate one cell from the other. Let's say the cell decide we're going to become hippies. Why should there be a war between me and you? Let's become one bigger cell. It's literally death. It's heipech hachayim. The way a human body or an animal body or a plant body lives is because every cell is living independently. And when they join together with other cells to create complex life, they don't give up the mechitzas. They retain the mechitzas. Only when you have walls between one cell and another can the 2 cells cooperate in a healthy and a constructive way. This morning someone sent me a clip. This morning someone sent me 3 minutes of Rabbi Gurari from Buffalo. Nusri Gurari was like gesund. telling a story. It's very geschmack. I must have listened to it 4 times. He said he was going on shlichus, and he had questions to the Rebbe, because he knew what questions the students were going to ask him, and he didn't have answers for them. One of the questions he asked the Rebbe was what he should say to the students about the Vietnam War, which was then in its heyday. And another question that he asked the Rebbe was, how do we understand the relationship between Yidden and Goyim? V'havdi. So the Rebbe told him a mashal. When you have to do a project of any type, everybody has a different role. One person is a plumber, one person is an electrician, one person is a builder, one person is a carpenter, and so on. But everybody has to do their job. And you know, the Chazal say about the Leviim, the Meshederim are not allowed to go into the Sheyarim, and the Sheyarim are not allowed to go into the Meshederim. If your job was to sing in the Beis HaMikdash, you couldn't open and close the doors. If your job was to open and close the doors, you couldn't sing. And if you crossed jobs, it was a terrible thing. Everybody has to have a mechitza. We are closer when we have walls. And when we think that the only way to be close is take down those walls, we find out that when you take down the walls, you end up being farther away. This is how the Eibishter made the world. There are mechitzas, there's avdolas. And hufka ha'ir is the violation of those separations. It's breaking down those mechitzas and it brings a churban. Right now, so now, if you're going to say that the Eibishter did this because he loves us so much, and this would ultimately preserve the Jewish people, I understand. But what could possibly be positive about Hufka Ha'ir? The event of breaking down the walls is a negative event. The event of breaking down the walls is a negative event which preserves the Jewish people. But what is positive about the event of breaking the walls themselves? What's the teretz? Every Lubavitcher knows this. I'll say it, you'll say, of course. The teretz is Prozis Teshuva Yerushalayim. It's a pasuk in Tanakh also, right? That when Moshiach comes, Yerushalayim is not going to have a wall. There won't need to be a wall. You need to have a wall when you're in one Maimed HaMatzav. And when you're in a different Maimed HaMatzav, in other words, why do you need a wall? You have to separate one thing from another. Everything needs to have its own space. Everything has to have its own definition. This is the city of Yerushalayim. This is outside the city of Yerushalayim. And there's many halachas that apply in Yerushalayim that don't apply anyplace else, like Ma'aser Sheni and all kinds of other stuff, right? That a Zav is nishlach outside Yerushalayim, and on 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 and on. There needs to be walls, but ultimately there's a Maimed HaMatzav where the walls are taken down because the kedusha expands, because the kedusha exists everywhere the same. In other words, now to take down a wall is a chorban because of the Yetzer Hara. Ultimately, there's a Maimed HaMatzav where the wall is taken down completely because there's no Yetzer Hara. For the same reason, now you must have a wall. You don't need a wall, and that's the ultimate interpretation of Shiva Asa B'Tammuz. Shiva Asa B'Tammuz, the Eibishter broke the walls, or he allowed the walls to be broken. It's really the same thing. Why did the Eibishter allow the walls to be broken? The walls were broken and the Jews were preserved. The Eibishter was saving the Jewish people. In order to save the Jewish people, there had to be these terrible nisyonis, these terrible hardships. When Moshiach comes, it's going to be a Yom Tiv, because we're going to see how the Eibishter preserved us using these events. So it's not only that the fast day stops, obviously the fast day is going to stop, but in addition to the fast day stopping, the fast days become freiliche days. What about the detail of Hufka or Ha'ir, the very fact that the walls of the cities are breached? How is that going to be when Mashiach comes? And the teretz is Prozis Teshuva. Prozis means no walls. Prozis means spread out, expansive. And the Rebbe brings always, and these are Maimorei Chazal that are not only Medrashim and Chassidus and Kabbalah, these are pasha to have a basis in Halacha, in Nigla D'Teira, in Halacha. Right? Asidah, that the Beis HaMikdash is going to be Mispashet in Holy Eretz Yisrael. And that Yerushalayim is going to be the Holy Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is going to be Mispashet in Holy Eretz Yisrael. And that Yisrael is going to be Mispashet on the whole world. The world is going to become a better world. So there'll be a different kind of mechitza. There won't be a mechitza. And the pnimius of the pnimius, the real meaning behind Hufka Ha'ir and Shivasta B'Tammuz is this is the beginning of the idea that when Mashiach comes, they don't need walls. And I'm not trying to say that we should take the walls down now. People have made that experiment already. And we all saw where that leads and where that's leading to, unfortunately. But the Mashiach had come and it'll be a whole different Maimed HaMatzav. Yid will be in a different Madrega. The Yetzer Hara will be a different Yetzer Hara. And the Yetzer Tev will be a different Yetzer Tev. So it'll be a different Maimed HaMatzav. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the Tammuz for about 2 minutes. Yeah. I don't think you mind too much. Yeah. So I want you to know every single word I said is a sikha. Chagonish Bashaf. Why? Because it's good. It sounds good stuff. If it's good, I didn't make it up. It's just a cloud level. If I say something, and it's interesting, so anyway, this is how Chassidim look at all the tiny A's. First of all, those who are fasting should have an easy fast. And second of all, beginning with the 3 weeks, the Rebbe says that we should learn, like it's going to be done here at night in Beis Medrash Nashim, to learn Hilchas Beis HaBchira, to learn about the Beis HaMikdash. It's a takana of many that the Rebbe made. And when the Rebbe made the takana of Beis HaBchira, the Rebbe brought a Medrash. That the Medrash says, and I'm using, of course, the Rebbe's words, that we know that kol ha'esik b'teiras eila ki'ilu hikrev eila, kol ha'esik b'teiras chatas ki'ilu hikrev chatas. If you learn about a carbon eila, it's as if you brought a carbon eila. If you learn about a carbon chatas, as if you're in a carbon chatas. But when the Medrash talks about the idea that the Navi Yecheskel was told by the Eibishter to learn about the Beis HaMikdash, because Beis Yichorev, there's no physical Beis HaMikdash. So since Beis Yichorev, you can't go in there and you can't do the avodah there, you should learn about it. So the Pasuk says, and the Medrash explains it, and the Rebbe underscores it, that when it comes to learning about Beis HaBchira, it's not Ki'ilu Bona Beis HaMikdash. It's Bona Beis HaMikdash. In other words, learning about a carbon is like bringing a carbon. Learning about building the Beis HaMikdash is B'Payel Mamish, building the third Beis HaMikdash. The Rebbe brings that ayah Medayik Maloshin in the Medrash, and therefore the Rebbe made a takana many years ago, 40 years ago, Berech, that people should learn Beis HaBchira during the 3 weeks, and of course during the 9 days until Chamish B'Av, we should make Siyumim. So there's a couple, and of course we should add in Tzedakah, and we should also add in the Jewish people's Achilles heel. What's the Jewish people's Achilles heel? I love him, he should just be a mensch, that's it. Otherwise I love him. Not as I'm a mensch, just he should agree with me, and then I'm going to love him. It's so fascinating. It's so fascinating to experience this leinagu kovod zeh b'zeh. I'm not a little boy anymore. I'm what they call middle-aged. I'm not going to tell you how old middle age is, but I'm not 15. Yeah, and I've lived, and I've watched, and I've experienced. And you see this phenomena of loy nogu kovod. Everybody is l'shem shamayim. Everybody is doing the right thing, and there's such an incredible degree of intolerance because yen is nit maskem mit mir. It's fantastic. It's amazing. And the idea that an individual person could say, you know what, ich darf nicht kein Alleman. I can like the people who don't agree with me. It's hard. It's hard. Why is it hard? Because the third Beis HaMikdash depends on it. And if the third Beis HaMikdash depends on it, you understand yourself that the Torahs of Liyumazeh are putting more into the union of Sinas Chinam than into anything else. So the Rebbe made a big student that we should increase in the union of Avas Chinam. So the Rebbe said to learn in Yonim of Beis HaBchira during the 3 weeks, to make Siyumim during the 9 days, and the principle here is that the Rebbe brings the word from Pelish Rebbe, Pelish Chassidim, Mishenichnas of Mematin Besimcha. That when Av begins, you wanted them. So the Mishnah says, Mishenichnas of Mematin Besimcha. When Av comes in, you have to make a lessening of joy. Right? And Al Derech said, Mishenichnas Adar Marbin Besimcha. When Adar comes in, you increase in joy. So it's a Pelish Shigutta Yid that the Rebbe quotes, who said, Mishenichnas of Mematin. When Av comes, and it's time of Avelis, and you want to make less the Avelis, you make less the Avelis Besimcha. The problem is a Shulchan Aruch. And the Shulchan Aruch can't mess around with. Shulchan Aruch says it's a man of Avelis, so you have to find a Simcha which the Shulchan Aruch didn't ask it. And that's why you make a Siyam. You don't make a Siyam Masechta to eat fleishiks. You make a Siyam Masechta because when you make a Siyam on the Masechta, it's a Simcha, right? As Eid Alocha, when you have a situation of Avelis, there are certain Simchas that you can't be stopped. For example, a bris, you can make a bris, right? You can make a bris even on Tisha B'Av. It's a Simcha. You could make a Siyam Masechta, right? A Yom Tov L'Rabbanan, the Siyam Masechta is a Yom Tiv. So B'meila, this is the vision, this is the spirit, this is the perspective of the Rebbe, and ultimately the Rebbe's point of view is we look at the 3 weeks and the 9 days and Shivasa B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av as Yomim Tovim to come. It's 22 days. Imagine what you didn't do in 8 days or 9 days on Sukkot. Abish is going to give us 22 days from Shivasa B'Tammuz till Tisha B'Av is going to be our carnival. So it's an Azei Freilach in Eretz Yisrael, and the high moments are going to be today and 3 weeks from today.